Aiden Hall's Thursday night ritual involved 3 essential elements: sweatpants with the elastic half-shot, a jar of extra chunky peanut butter, and reality television bad enough to make him feel better about his life. Choices: tonight's selection: Mary, my mother-in-law, was delivering spectacularly on the cringe factor. No way, Aiden muttered through a mouthful of peanut butter as a contestant proposed to his girlfriend's mother while the girlfriend watched from behind a two-way mirror. That's Coldman even for reality TV. He sank deeper into his worn couch, the springs groaning in protest beneath him. His apartment wasn't much, a one-bedroom in downtown Chicago, with a view of the neighbor's brick wall, but after 3 years of living in firehouses and rescue stations, even this modest space felt like a luxury. The television flickered, the image distorting momentarily. Come on, Aiden grumbled, stretching his leg to kick the ancient set. Not tonight. The distortion worsened. A high-pitched whine emanated from the speakers as blue light seeped from the edges of the screen. Aiden sat up, spoon still clutched in his hand. What the hell? The blue light intensified, pulsing in rhythm with the whine. It wasn't coming from just the television anymore, it filled the room, wrapping around furniture, climbing the walls. Aiden jumped to his feet, the jar of peanut butter tumbling to the floor. Hey, he backed away, hard hammering against his ribs. The light followed, tendrils of blue energy reaching for him like curious fingers. No, no, no. The energy coalesced into a swirling vortex, the center of which seemed to stretch infinitely inward. Aiden's feet lifted from the floor as an unseen force pulled him toward the anomaly. Help, he shouted, grabbing for the door frame, the kitchen counter, anything within reach. His fingers slipped from each handhold, the force growing stronger. Somebody. The vortex swallowed him whole, his scream cutting off as reality collapsed around him. The last thing he registered was the cold metal of the spoon still gripped in his white-knuckled fist. Princess Lonnie Vera sat with perfect posture in her chambers, her slender violet fingers tracing equations in the air before her. The holographic symbols responded to her touch, rearranging themselves into complex patterns of quantum poetry, a respectable pastime for a royal of her standing, in one of the few entertainments permitted on Alna. The planet had evolved into a technological utopia at a tremendous cost. 1,000 years ago, the Great Sensory Rebellion had nearly destroyed their civilization, a war triggered by unregulated emotions and physical desires. The solution had been elegant and absolute: emotional regulation, implants for every citizen, strict prohibition of physical contact, and reproduction managed exclusively through laboratory genetic matching. History itself had been rewritten, the sensory era erased from official records and remembered only as a cautionary tale of barbarism. Lonnie suppressed a sigh, an emotional response. Her implant immediately flagged and neutralized. 372 days had passed since she'd experienced anything truly novel: the endless council meetings, ceremonial appearances, and intellectual exercises blurred together in a carefully calibrated sequence of appropriate activities. Your Highness, the artificial voice of her chamber system in your requested acquisition has arrived. Lonnie allowed herself a small smile, the only external expression of anticipation permitted by the High Council's emotional protocols. Proceed with the transfer. The delivery portal in the center of her chamber hummed to life. Her sister Princess Marina had secretly ordered this neuroplush therapy companion from the galactic marketplace after noticing Lonnie's increasing disinterest in her royal duty. Such items were rarely approved, but as Marina had explained while bypassing several security protocols, even perfect princesses need something to squeeze. Occasionally the portal's light intensified, a shimmering disk of energy expanding in her chamber. Lonnie dismissed her quantum poetry with a flick of her wrist and rose to her feet, smoothing the immaculate lines of her silver-white garments that accentuated her statuesque figure instead of the expected small, fuzzy companion. The portal violently pulsed and spat out something large and sprawling. Lonnie stumbled backward as a creature tumbled onto her floor, limbs akimbo, face contorted, clutching something small and silver. What in the 7 moons? She gasped, immediately noting with alarm her own emotional outburst. The creature, clearly organic, possibly sentient, groaned and pushed itself up on its elbows. It was covered in fabric of varying textures, had brownish gold fur on its head, and emanated a sweet scent reminiscent of the artificial flavor compounds used in nutritional supplements. Where's the damn remote? It mumbled in a language her translator immediately processed. The creature's eyes, an unusual blue-green, focused on her, widening in shock. Holy shit. Lonnie's hand instinctively moved to the emergency communication panel on her wrist. The creature held up its hands. Whoa, don't call security or the mothership or whatever. I'm harmless, just extremely confused. It looked around Frantically, is this, am I on some kind of hidden camera show humans meet aliens? Because if so, Jerry Springer has really upped his game. Lonnie's analytical mind raced. This must be her therapeutic companion, though clearly there had been an error in the specifications. It was much larger than anticipated, more vocally expressive, and appeared to possess higher cognitive functions than the basic empathy programming she'd ordered. You are my assigned comfort entity, she stated, straightening her posture, though there appears to have been a delivery error regarding your parameters. The creature scrambled to its feet, revealing itself to be taller than her by at least 20 centimeters. Lady, I'm not anybody's comfort entity. I'm Aiden Hall from Chicago. I was sitting on my couch eating peanut butter, and now he spun around, taking in the crystalline architecture, the hovering furnishings, the panoramic view of the iridescent spires of the Capitol. Definitely not in Chicago anymore. His gaze returned to her, and Aiden found himself momentarily speechless. The alien princess before him was breathtaking in an otherworldly way that defied his understanding of beauty. Her skin was a deep violet with a pearl-like luminescence that caught the light with every movement. Her face combined elegant aristocratic features with large, iridescent eyes that shifted between shades of amethyst. A cascade of hair that seemed to contain the colors of deep space flowed down her back and her figure. Well, even through the formality of her attire, he could see curves that would stop traffic on any planet. Her slender waist emphasized both her generous bust and the sculptural perfection of her legs. Chicago, Lonnie repeated, accessing her knowledge database, seemingly oblivious to his stunned appraisal. Earth terrain designation primitive technological sector. She tilted her head. You are a human specimen. Aiden backed up until he hit a wall, forcing himself to focus on the alarming situation rather than her exotic beauty. No, not a specimen. Just a guy, a regular guy who would very much like to go home now. That will not be possible, Lonnie informed him, maintaining the calm, measured tone prescribed for unexpected situations. The interdimensional acquisition portal is unidirectional. The return protocol is quite complex and requires authorization from multiple governmental divisions. Aiden's face contorted into an expression the princess found difficult to categorize. Was it distress, anger, confusion? Her emotional recognition training had been deliberately limited by her instructors. You've got to be kidding me. He slid down the wall until he was sitting on the floor. I'm stuck on an alien planet with a purple woman who talks like a thesaurus, had a baby with a computer manual. Lalani approached cautiously, studying him with clinical interest. Your coloration is also unusual to me, and your communication style is unnecessarily complicated by emotional modulation. She knelt down to his level, maintaining an appropriate distance of 1 meter. I am Princess Lonnie Vera of the Sovereign Systems of Naya. You are now in my custodial care. Aiden stared at her, then burst into a sound that her translator couldn't process, a rhythmic vocalization that caused his shoulders to shake. Laughter. Her system finally supplied expression of amusement or hysteria. Princess Aiden wiped his eyes. Of course you are, because this day couldn't get any weirder. He looked at her more carefully. You're really purple, like all over. My epidermal pigmentation is standard for the royal bloodline, she replied stiffly, uncomfortable with his direct assessment. And what's with the glowy bits? He gestured toward the luminescent patterns that traced along her temples and down her neck, disappearing beneath her collar. Bioluminescent indicators of physiological status, she explained. All Nans possess them, though royal patterns are more elaborate. Aiden nodded slowly. Right, cool. Just chatting with a glowing purple alien princess. Totally normal. Thursday. He examined the spoon still clutched in his hand. At least I've still got my spoon. That's something. Is that a ceremonial object? Lonnie inquired, genuinely curious about the small metal implement. Aiden looked at the peanut butter smeared utensil and laughed again. Yeah, sure, very ceremonial, used in the sacred ritual of eating straight from the jar while watching garbage TV. Lonnie's brow furrowed. Your explanations contain contradictions and apparent falsehoods. This complicates my assessment of your purpose and functionality. My purpose? Aiden pushed himself up from the floor. Look, princess, I don't have a purpose here. I was accidentally teleported or whatever. I'm not supposed to be here, and you weren't expecting me, so how about we call whoever's in charge of your FedEx and get me sent back? Lonnie stood as well, maintaining her distance. I will submit a request for your return processing. However, protocol dictates that all unexpected acquisitions must be quarantined and studied before disposition. Studied? Aiden's voice rose. No studying, no probing, no dissecting, none of that sci-fi horror movie stuff. You misunderstand, Lonnie said. I am merely required to document your behavioral patterns and biological functions. Invasive analysis would damage royal property. Aiden's face flushed. Read I'm not property, I'm a person. Lonnie felt something unexpected, a faint flutter in her chest that her implant quickly suppressed. The human's emotional display was remarkably unfiltered. She'd never witnessed such raw expression outside of historical documents about the pre-regulated era. Semantic distinctions are irrelevant to your current status, she said, her voice cooler than before, until your return is authorized. You remain under my jurisdiction. I will provide appropriate sustenance and accommodation. Aiden ran his hands through his hair, musing it further. This can't be happening. I'm going to wake up on my couch with a peanut butter hangover, and this will all have been a weird dream. Lonnie accessed her chamber's control panel with a gesture. The adaptation quarters are preparing. You will find the environment suitable for your biological needs. What if I don't want to go to your adaptation quarters? Aiden challenged, crossing his arms. What if I just walk out that door and find my own way home? Lonnie's expression remained neutral, but her luminescent markings pulsed slightly brighter. The security systems would identify you as an unauthorized entity and neutralize you. Additionally, the atmospheric composition outside the royal complex contains elements toxic to Earth physiology. Aiden's shoulders slumped. Fantastic, so I'm trapped in an alien palace with a robot princess who thinks I'm her pet. I am not a robot, Lonnie corrected. I am a biological entity with technological enhancements, as are all civilized Alneans, and you are not a pet. You are a therapeutic companion specimen. That's not better. Aiden threw his hands up. Listen, princess, I'm a former rescue worker from Chicago. I have an apartment, bills to pay, friends who wonder where I am. I can't just disappear into space. The mention of his occupation triggered Lonnie's curiosity. Rescue worker? You retrieved damaged individuals? I saved people. Yeah. His tone softened slightly. Firefighter and paramedic for 6 years before he stopped abruptly. Not that it matters now. Lonnie noted the shift in his demeanor with interest. Why did you cease this function? Aiden's jaw tightened. They said I got too emotionally involved with victims, called it a liability in crisis situations. Apparently caring if people live or die is frowned upon in management. This is logical. Lonnie nodded. Emotional involvement reduces operational efficiency. Our civilization eliminated such impediments centuries ago. Eliminated emotions? Aiden stared at her. That's messed up, princess. Emotions aren't impediments, they're what make life worth living. An antiquated perspective she dismissed, though something about his conviction unsettled her. The adaptation quarters are ready, please follow. She led him through a series of doorways that materialized and dematerialized in the crystalline walls. Aiden followed reluctantly, his eyes wide as he took in the impossible architecture and hovering objects. How does any of this work? He asked, reaching out to touch a suspended light sphere. Do not touch, Lalani warned sharply. Nanotechnology responds to specific biological signatures. Foreign contact could trigger defensive protocols. Aiden yanked his hand back. Right, don't touch the alien tech. Got it. They arrived at a chamber that had reconfigured itself into an approximation of human living quarters based on Lonnie's system's best understanding of Earth habitation. These will be your quarters, she announced. The environmental controls will maintain appropriate temperature, humidity, and oxygen levels. Nutritional supplements will be provided at regular intervals. Aiden surveyed the sterile white room with its geometrically perfect furnishings. It's like a hospital room designed by someone who's only seen pictures of hospitals. It is optimally functional, Lalani stated. It's devoid of personality, Aiden countered, just like this whole place. He turned to face her. Do you actually live like this? No colors, no comfort, no I don't know stuff. Excessive personalization encourages attachment and individualistic tendencies, she explained. Such tendencies led to the sensory conflicts that nearly destroyed our civilization, so everyone just exists in these perfect empty spaces feeling nothing. Aiden's expression was one of genuine horror. That's not living, princess, that's just not dying. Lonnie felt that strange flutter again, stronger this time. Her implant hummed against her temple, working to neutralize the unpermitted emotional response. Your philosophical perspectives are irrelevant to your current situation, she said, her voice slightly strained. You will remain here while I complete the necessary documentation for your processing, and if I don't, Aiden challenged. Lonnie met his gaze directly. Then your chances of returning to Earth decreased significantly. Aiden held her stare for several seconds before sighing heavily. Fine, I'll stay in your fancy alien holding cell, but I want something to eat that isn't nutritional supplements, and I want answers about how I got here and how I'm getting home. I will consider your request, Lanny conceded, turning to leave. Hey princess, Aiden called after her, do you have a name besides your royal title? Something a little easier for my primitive human brain. She paused at the Threshold Lalani is my designation Lonnie, he repeated the name sounding different. In his accent, I'm Aiden, not human specimen or therapeutic companion, just. Aiden noted, she replied, stepping through the doorway the entrance sealed behind her, leaving Aiden alone in the sterile chamber. Lonnie stood outside for a moment. Her hand pressed against her chest where that strange sensation had occurred. Her implant beeped softly, indicating a minor regulation anomaly. She would need to run a diagnostic. This human Aiden was having an unexpected effect on her systems. She walked briskly back to her chambers, trying to ignore the lingering scent of caramel that seemed to follow her. 3 days passed in a blur of frustrating attempts at communication. Aiden had tried everything: reason, humor, anger, even pleading, but Lalani remained maddeningly controlled, addressing his questions with clinical detachment and confusing jargon about interdimensional transit protocols and specimen repatriation procedures. He'd been permitted to leave his quarters only for what Lalani called environmental adaptation sessions, which mostly involved him sitting in various rooms while she observed and took notes on her floating holographic interface. Tonight Aiden sat on the floor of Lonnie's main chamber, watching as she worked on complicated equations that hung in the air like glowing spiderwebs. Can I at least get something to read? He asked, breaking the silence that had stretched between them for nearly an hour. Or watch or listen to anything to keep from losing my mind from boredom. Lonnie glanced at him. Your species requires constant sensory stimulation. My species requires not sitting in silence staring at walls for days on end, Aiden retorted. Look, I get that I'm your science project or whatever, but could you at least pretend I'm a person with actual thoughts and feelings? Your emotional displays are unnecessarily frequent and intense, she observed. Is this typical of humans or specific to your individual neurochemistry? Aiden threw up his hands. There you go again, talking about me like I'm a lab rat instead of someone sitting 3 feet away from you. He stood up and paced the room. How would you feel if you were suddenly yanked from your home and stuck in a place where everyone treated you like you weren't even real? Lonnie's bioluminescent markings pulsed slightly. I do not speculate on hypothetical emotional scenarios. Such exercises serve no practical purpose. Of course not, Aiden muttered, because you've all eliminated emotions, right? Except I don't buy it. I've seen the way your glowy bits light up when you're surprised or annoyed. You feel things. You're just really good at pretending you don't. Lonnie's fingers paused over her equations. You are mistaken. The luminescent responses you observe are automatic physiological reactions, not emotional indicators. Aha. Aiden crossed his arms. So if I did this, he made an exaggerated face, crossing his eyes and sticking out his tongue, it wouldn't bother you at all? Lonnie stared at him, her expression unchanged but her markings definitely glowing brighter. Your behavior is juvenile and inappropriate, but it doesn't bother you, right? Aiden pressed, stepping closer. Because you don't have emotions. Proximity restriction, she said stiffly, taking a step back. Maintain appropriate distance. Why? Aiden challenged. If you don't have emotions, what does it matter how close I stand? It is protocol, she insisted, her voice slightly higher than usual. Protocol, Aiden repeated mockingly. Everything's protocol with you people. Don't feel, don't touch, don't live, just follow protocol until you die, having experienced absolutely nothing real. Our civilization has thrived for millennia under these guidelines, Lonnie countered, her markings now pulsing visibly. We have eliminated war, crime and suffering, and joy and love and excitement and everything else that makes life worth living. Aiden shot back. You haven't eliminated suffering, princess. You've just numbed yourself so completely you can't even recognize what you're missing. Lonnie's implant hummed audibly, now working overtime to regulate her unexpected physiological responses. This conversation is counterproductive. You will return to your quarters. No, Aiden said flatly. I'm done being your obedient pet. Either treat me like a person or he faltered, realizing he had no leverage. Or what? Lonnie asked, genuine curiosity in her tone. Aiden deflated slightly. I don't know, but I'm tired and I'm homesick and I just want someone to talk to me like I matter. Something in his expression seemed to reach past Lonnie's careful control. Her features softened almost imperceptibly. The repatriation process is complex, she said, her voice gentler than before. Your arrival was unprecedented. There are no established protocols for your situation. Then make something up, Aiden suggested, sitting down heavily on a hovering platform that adjusted to his weight. You're a princess, right? Don't you have any authority around here? My status grants me certain privileges, but I am still bound by the council's regulations, she explained, dismissing her equations with a wave. However, I will attempt to expedite your case. Thank you, Aiden said sincerely. That's all I'm asking. Just try and maybe treat me like a person while we figure this out. Lonnie hesitated, then Nodded once. I will adjust my interaction parameters. Aiden smiled, the first genuine smile she'd seen from him. See, that wasn't so hard. Later that night, after endless discussions about Earth and Ulna and the fundamental differences between their societies, Leilani found herself growing unusually fatigued. Her regular regeneration cycle wasn't due for another 6 hours, but her energy levels were depleting rapidly. I must enter rest mode, she announced, interrupting Aiden's explanation of something called pizza. Oh, he said, looking around. Should I go back to my room? Lonnie considered the protocol, then made a decision. You may remain. The security system will alert me if you attempt to access restricted areas. She settled onto her rest platform, which molded itself to her form. Aiden sat awkwardly on the floor nearby. Don't you have like a couch or something? He asked. The floor isn't exactly comfortable. Comfort is not a priority in Ulna design, she murmured, her eyes already closing. Of course it isn't, Aiden said, leaning back against the wall. As Lonnie drifted into her regeneration cycle, her consciousness dimming, she was vaguely aware of Aiden's quiet breathing nearby. It was strange having another being so close during her vulnerable period, yet somehow not as disturbing as protocol suggested it should be. Dreams were rare for Allens. Their regulated minds typically shut down completely during rest, but tonight fragments of images flickered through Lonnie's consciousness. Earth as Aiden had described it, green plants growing wild instead of in controlled environments, water falling from the sky instead of being precisely dispensed, and warmth undefined but persistent spreading through her body. In her sleep, Lonnie shifted her regeneration platform, moving with her. She turned toward the source of that imagined warmth, her body seeking it. Unconsciously, Aiden, who had finally fallen asleep sitting up against the wall, was startled awake by something pressing against his side. He opened his eyes to find the Lonnie's rest platform had somehow extended toward him, and she was now curled beside him, her head resting against his shoulder. A princess, he whispered, afraid to move. Your personal space protocols are kind of failing right now. She didn't respond deep in her regeneration cycle, but as he watched as something extraordinary happened where her violet skin pressed against him, a soft glow began to emanate, not the controlled pulses of her facial markings, but a diffuse luminescence that spread across her entire form. Whoa! Aiden breathed, fascinated. You're lighting up like Times Square on New Year's Eve. The glow intensified, bathing the entire chamber in gentle purple light. Aiden tentatively raised a hand, hesitating just above her shoulder. All the warnings about not touching nanotechnology echoed in his mind, but Lonnie wasn't technology, no matter how much her society tried to make her into something mechanical. Gently, carefully, he placed his hand on her shoulder. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Lonnie's entire body flared with light, the luminescence pulsing in waves from the point of contact. Her eyes flew open wide with shock and something else, something that looked remarkably like wonder. What is happening? She gasped, staring at her glowing skin. What did you do? Aiden quickly removed his hand. Nothing. You moved next to me in your sleep. I didn't touch you until just now, I swear. Lonnie scrambled away from him, her entire body trembling as the glow slowly faded. This is impossible. This is. She pressed her hand to her temple where her implant was visibly pulsing, trying to regulate whatever was happening to her unauthorized physiological response. Containment failing. Hey, are you okay? Aiden stood, concerned by her obvious distress. Is this like an allergic reaction or something? No, she whispered, her voice filled with something he'd never heard from her before. Fear. This is something else. Something forbidden. She stared at her hands as the last of the glow faded, leaving only her normal markings pulsing rapidly with her accelerated heartbeat. What's forbidden? Aiden asked, carefully keeping his distance. Lonnie raised her eyes to his, and for the first time since he'd arrived, her expression was completely unguarded. Feeling, she said simply. I felt something when you touched me, something real. Lonnie sat rigidly across from Aiden in her private chambers, her violet fingers tapping a nervous rhythm on the crystalline table between them. 3 days had passed since the incident, as she insisted on calling it. 3 days of her avoiding his gaze, keeping precise distances between them, and speaking in clipped formal sentences that revealed nothing, but her skin betrayed her every time Aiden entered the room. A subtle glow rippled beneath her violet surface like lightning beneath storm clouds. We need to talk about what happened, Aiden said, leaning forward. Lonnie flinched backward. There is nothing to discuss. A temporary malfunction in my regulatory systems. The technicians have adjusted my implant settings. Bullshit, Aiden replied, crossing his arms. You've been avoiding me for days, and every time I get within 10 feet of you, you light up. Like a Christmas tree. I am unfamiliar with this Earth reference, she said stiffly. It means you're glowing right now, Aiden pointed out. Look at your hands. Lonnie glanced down. Sure enough, a soft luminescence pulsed beneath her skin. She quickly tucked her hands beneath the table. A residual effect, she insisted. It will pass. Aiden shook his head. You're scared, I get it, but lying about it isn't helping either of us. I am not experiencing fear. Fear is an emotional response that your fancy implant is supposed to suppress. Yeah, I know the script, Aiden cut in, but something's happening to you, something your tech can't control, and I think deep down you're curious about it. A flash of something, interest perhaps, flickered across Lonnie's face before she composed herself. Curiosity is permitted within prescribed parameters. Aiden laughed. There's nothing prescribed about any of this. He softened his tone. Listen, on Earth we have a saying, the truth will set you free. Maybe what you're feeling isn't a malfunction, maybe it's who you really are. That is enough. Lonnie stood abruptly, her bioluminescent patterns flaring. I have duties to attend to. The council is requiring my presence at the harmonic convocation. My genetic matching ceremony preparations begin today. Aiden's eyebrows shot up. Genetic what? Now matching ceremony, Lonnie repeated, straightening her formal attire. All royal lineage members undergo optimized partner selection at maturity. The council has accelerated my timeline in light of recent anomalies. Wait, they're marrying you off because of me? Lonnie's luminescence intensified despite her obvious effort to control it. The timing is coincidental. My matching was always scheduled for this cycle and you're just going along with it. Let some algorithm pick your what husband? Genetic contributor. Lonnie corrected. Physical cohabitation is inefficient and promotes emotional dependency. The selected match will donate genetic material which will be combined with mine in laboratory conditions to produce optimally designed offspring. Aiden stared at her, momentarily speechless. That's the most depressing thing I've ever heard. It is logical and efficient, Lonnie replied, though her voice lacked conviction. It's insane, Aiden countered. You deserve better than being a high-tech broodmare. Lonnie's face flushed a deeper violet. Your primitive perspectives are irrelevant. I must prepare. You will remain in your quarters until I return. She swept toward the door, but Aiden moved quickly, blocking her path. He didn't touch her but stood close enough that she had to stop. Lonnie, he said softly, what you felt when we touched, what you're feeling right now, it's real. It's not a malfunction or an anomaly. It's who you are beneath all this programming. Her luminescent patterns pulsed rapidly, betraying her agitation. Move aside. No. Aiden stood his ground. Not until you admit there's something happening between us. Between us, her voice rose slightly. There is nothing between us. You are a foreign organism accidentally delivered to my care. Nothing more than. Why are you glowing right now? Aiden challenged, stepping closer. Why is your voice shaking? Why won't you look me in the eye? Because Lonnie finally met his gaze, her eyes flashing. Because you are disrupting everything. My systems, my duties, my purpose. Before you arrived everything was clear. Now nothing makes sense. Aiden smiled slowly. Welcome to being alive, princess. For a moment something raw and vulnerable flashed across her face, then the door behind them hissed open, revealing a tall, severe-looking Nyan male in elaborate ceremonial attire. Princess Lonnie, he announced, his silver eyes flicking dismissively over Aiden. The Minister of Genetic Harmony awaits your presence. Lonnie straightened immediately, her expression smoothing into a perfect mask of composed dignity. I will attend immediately. Overseer therein. The official's gaze lingered on her face, noting the heightened glow of her markings. Your regulatory indicators appear unstable. Perhaps a diagnostic session before the convocation would be prudent. That won't be necessary, Lonnie replied coolly. A slight calibration issue. Already addressing. The overseer's attention shifted to Aiden. The foreign specimen should be contained during official proceedings. I will summon security escorts. I'll handle my own property. Overseer, Lonnie said sharply. She turned to Aiden. Return to your quarters immediately. Aiden opened his mouth to protest, but something in Lonnie's eyes stopped him. A silent warning, perhaps even a plea. He nodded stiffly. Whatever you say, princess. The overseer departed with a suspicious backward glance. Once he was gone, Lonnie leaned close to Aiden, her voice barely audible. They are watching more closely now. Be cautious. Trust no one. She pressed a small crystalline object into his palm. This will allow limited access to the information network. Learn what you can. Before Aiden could respond, she swept from the room, leaving him alone with the cryptic device and the distinct impression that Lonnie Vera wasn't nearly as controlled as she pretended to be. The harmonic convocation was excruciating. Lonnie stood perfectly still on the central platform as Minister Vox encircled her, his cold silver eyes scanning her bio-signatures with unnerving intensity. Your regulatory patterns show irregularities, princess, he Observed his thin lips barely moving, most concerning the foreign specimen has exposed me to unusual stimuli. Lonnie replied carefully, my systems are adapting. Indeed, the minister gestured to a hovering display that showed biometric readings. Lonnie couldn't fully interpret. Your dopamine and oxytocin levels have fluctuated dramatically over the past 6 days. Primitive responses typically suppressed by the regulatory implant. Lonnie maintained her composure despite the racing of her heart. A temporary adjustment phase, nothing significant. On the contrary, Princess Voxerin stopped directly before her. It is most significant. Such responses were common during the sensory era, the dark age before enlightenment. His voice dropped to a threatening whisper. Before we saved our species from the chaos of emotion. The chamber fell silent as the 12 council members observed from their elevated platforms. Lonnie felt their collective scrutiny like a physical weight. The specimen will be removed for study, the minister continued. At normal volume, your implant will be recalibrated. The genetic matching will proceed immediately rather than next cycle. Alarm shot through Lonnie, intensifying her luminescence. Despite her best efforts to suppress it, the proper protocols require a full cycle of preparation, accelerating the process is unprecedented. These are unprecedented circumstances, Voxerin replied with chilling finality. The council has already selected your genetic counterpart. Counselor Zenith Sunveeler shows optimal compatibility with minimal deviation markers. Lonnie's mind rested. AR was the most rigid, emotionless individual she had ever encountered, famous for having never once triggered his regulatory implant in 30 years of existence, a perfect Alnayan by current standards. The thought of her genetic material combining with his made her physically ill. I request time to prepare appropriately, she said, fighting to keep her voice steady. Denied, the minister replied. The ceremony will occur in 7 rotations. Until then, the foreign specimen will be relocated to the analysis chamber for comprehensive study. Horror flooded Lonnie's system. The analysis chamber was a clinical euphemism for the laboratory where unauthorized foreign entities were dissected molecule by molecule. The specimen is my property, she asserted, invoking ancient royal privilege acquired through authorized channels for therapeutic purposes. Voxerin's expression hardened. Your authorization has been reviewed and found irregular. The acquisition portal was accessed using override codes without proper documentation. His silver eyes narrowed. A serious violation of protocol, Princess, one that suggests concerning behavioral patterns. Lonnie realized with dismay that they had traced her sister's illegal access. The council had her cornered. I understand, she conceded with a graceful nod. I will comply with the council's wisdom. Excellent. The minister's thin lips curved into what passed for a smile. Security will collect the specimen tomorrow at first light. You are dismissed, Princess. As Lonnie exited the chamber, her mind worked furiously. She had less than 12 hours to warn Aiden, less than 12 hours to decide where her true loyalties lay with a strict, emotionless society that had raised her, or with the forbidden feelings awakening inside her. The choice seemed impossible. Yet somehow it felt like it had already been made. Aiden paced his sterile quarters, examining the crystalline device Lonnie had slipped him. It pulsed with inner light but revealed no obvious way to activate it. He tried everything. Pressing it, shaking it, talking to it, even breathing on it. Come on, you alien USB stick, he muttered, give me something. As if responding to his frustration, the device suddenly projected a holographic interface into the air before him. Symbols and glyphs he couldn't comprehend floated in a 3-dimensional array. Great alien Google with no search bar. He cautiously extended a finger toward one of the glowing symbols. To his surprise, it responded to his touch, expanding into a complex network of interconnected glyphs. If only I had a translator. The device pulsed, and suddenly the alien script began transforming into recognizable English text. Crude translations appeared beneath each symbol. History knowledge restricted. Archives. Aiden read aloud. He pressed the history option. A flood of information materialized, a timeline of Nan civilization stretching back thousands of years. Most of it was typical historical fare: technological developments, population statistics, governance transitions, but there was a strange gap, approximately 1,000 years prior, labeled simply as the Reconstruction era. Aiden selected this period and the device paused, flashing a warning glyph: access restricted. The crude translation read, of course it is. Aiden sighed. He backed out and tried another approach, selecting knowledge and then biological systems. This revealed detailed information about Alien physiology, specifically the bioluminescent patterns that fascinated him so much. According to the text, these patterns originally evolved as a complex social sexual signaling system, allowing Alnans to communicate emotional and physical states to potential mates and social groups. So they're basically mood Rings. Aiden mused. Really complex biological mood rings. Further reading revealed that the modern regulatory implants were designed specifically to suppress the natural luminescent responses, controlling the patterns to display only appropriate signals related to health status and cognitive function. They literally built technology to stop themselves from showing emotions, Aiden realized, but why? He continued digging. Following links between biological information and historical references, the picture that emerged was disturbing. A civilization that had deliberately engineered itself away from physical contact and emotional expression after some catastrophic event during the Reconstruction era. A soft chime at his door interrupted his research. The entrance slid open to reveal Leilani, her face tense and her luminescent patterns pulsing rapidly despite obvious attempts to control them. "We need to leave," she said without preamble. "Now." Aiden quickly deactivated the device. "What happened?" "The council has ordered your transfer to the analysis chamber at first light," she explained, moving quickly to a wall panel and inputting a complex sequence. "They will dissect you to understand how you've affected me." Dissect? Aiden's stomach dropped. "That sounds not good. It would be fatal," Lonnie confirmed grimly, "and they've accelerated my genetic matching ceremony in 7 days. I'll be permanently bonded to Counselor Zenith's son." "So what's the plan?" Aiden asked, watching as she retrieved a small pack from a compartment that materialized in the wall. "We have a small window of opportunity during the shift change in the security protocols," she explained, handing him the pack. "These contain emergency supplies and atmospheric converters that will allow you limited exposure to the outside environment." Aiden took the pack, studying her face. "Wait, you're coming with me?" Lonnie hesitated, her luminescence flickering. I cannot stay, not after experiencing." She struggled to find the words, her implant visibly pulsing at her temple as it fought to regulate her emotions. "Feeling something real?" Aiden finished for her. "Yes." She met his eyes directly. "I cannot return to emptiness now that I've glimpsed more." Aiden couldn't help but smile. "So you're choosing me over your perfect society?" "I'm choosing possibility over certainty," she corrected, though a flicker of answering amusement crossed her face. "Now follow closely and do exactly as I instruct." They moved through the palace via service corridors Aiden hadn't known existed. Lonnie explained in whispers that these passages were remnants of the pre-Reconstruction architecture, largely forgotten by modern Alnans who relied on automated systems for all maintenance functions. "Where are we going?" Aiden asked as they descended a spiraling passage. "The Eastern Archives," Lonnie replied. "It houses decommissioned records from before the Reconstruction. If we can find evidence of what really happened, perhaps we can understand why our society changed so dramatically." "I found some info on your glowy bits," Aiden said. "They were originally for emotional and sexual signaling before your people decided emotions were too dangerous." Leilani looked surprised. "You accessed this information from the device I gave you?" "Yeah, turns out it's pretty user-friendly once you get past the alien hieroglyphics." They reached a massive doorway marked with warning symbols. Lonnie placed her palm against a sensor panel, which initially flashed red. "Override access Royal Protocol Theta 9, she commanded." The panel hesitated, then reluctantly glowed green. The ancient door slid open with a groan of disuse. "I didn't know princesses got special access to forbidden stuff," Aiden remarked as they entered. "We don't," Leilani admitted. "I accessed my sister's royal security codes. She outranks me in the succession." The archive was vast and dimly lit, filled with physical storage units rather than the holographic interfaces Aiden had seen elsewhere. Dust particles danced in the air, something he hadn't encountered anywhere else in the clinically clean Nan environments. "Physical records," Lonnie explained, noting his surprise from before complete digitization. "The council considers them redundant but has never authorized their destruction." "Lucky for us," Aiden replied. Examining the strange storage units, they searched for hours, sifting through incomprehensible records and artifacts. Lonnie translated where she could, but many of the oldest materials used linguistic structures that had been deliberately removed from modern Nan language. "This is hopeless," Aiden sighed, sitting back against the storage unit. "We need a historian, not a princess and a firefighter." "Wait," Leilani called from several rows away. "I found something unusual." Aiden joined her before a sealed display case containing what appeared to be artwork, a flat panel displaying two intertwined Nan figures, their bodies illuminated with brilliant patterns that spread where they touched the joining. Lonnie translated the ancient script beneath the image, a depiction of physical bonding ritual. Her voice held confusion and wonder. "They're embracing," Aiden said softly, "and they're glowing just like you did when we touched." Lonnie's hand hovered near the display, not quite touching it. "This Suggests the luminescent response was once celebrated in courage they found. More artifacts, sculptures, images, and ceremonial objects, all depicting Alnons. In various states of physical contact, their luminescent patterns flaring in complex, beautiful configurations. It's like they built their whole culture around touch and emotional connection. Aiden observed the exact opposite of what they do now. Lonnie's fingers traced the air above a particularly intricate image showing two Alnians with their hands pressed together, light spreading from the point of contact. The illumination bond she read, a sacred connection between chosen partners linking mind, body, and soul. The concept seemed to both fascinate and disturb her. Our current society teaches that physical contact leads only to chaos and destruction. The Great Sensory Rebellion is described as a time when unregulated emotions caused catastrophic conflict. But what if that's not the whole story? Aiden suggested. What if someone rewrote history to control how your people live and feel? Lonnie's luminescent patterns pulsed with agitation. That would be an unprecedented deception, would it? Aiden gestured to the artifacts around them. All of this was hidden away, not destroyed. Someone wanted to preserve the truth even if they couldn't speak it openly. A sudden noise at the entrance made them both freeze. Voices and the distinctive hum of Nan security devices echoed through the archive. They've discovered our absence, Lonnie whispered, her markings dimming. An alarm. We must hide. They retreated deeper into the massive archive, finding shelter behind a row of large storage containers. The security team moved methodically through the space, scanning for life signatures. Your implant, Aiden suddenly realized. Can they track it? Lonnie's hand flew to her temple where the regulatory device was embedded. Yes, but not with precision. In this area, the archive's old shielding interferes with the signal. We need to keep moving, Aiden urged. Find another exit. Lonnie nodded, leading him through a labyrinth of shelves and storage units toward the far wall. There should be a maintenance access point if the original architecture hasn't been completely modified. They reached a section of wall that looked slightly different from the rest, less polished, more organic in design. Lonnie pressed her palm against it, whispering another override code. Nothing happened. Damn, she muttered the first time Aiden had heard her use anything approaching profanity. The system doesn't recognize modern access protocols. Maybe it's not supposed to be high-tech, Aiden suggested, running his hands along the seam in the wall. He applied pressure to a section that seemed slightly recessed, and to their surprise the panel slid open manually. Sometimes the old ways work best, he grinned as they slipped through into a dark, narrow passage. They had barely closed the panel behind them when the search team reached their previous position. Through the thin wall they could hear the security officers conferring. Life signatures detected but fading. One reported the foreign contamination has influenced the princess more severely than anticipated. Minister Voxiran has authorized full neural recalibration once she is recovered, another replied. The genetic matching will proceed regardless of her condition. Lonnie's face palled to a lighter shade of violet. Neural recalibration, she whispered, that would erase any non-conforming thought patterns. My memories, they'd make you forget everything. Aiden realized, including me. The gravity of their situation settled between them like a physical weight. There was no going back now, not for either of them. They moved silently through the maintenance passage, which eventually opened into what appeared to be an ancient garden.